Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Fly Tying Thursday, presented as ever we do every week by Flatwater Fly Fishers, an organization for, by, and dedicated to veterans around the state. My name is John Wright, and along with Mike Kelly, we host this Thursday night event. In fact, Mike is our guest tire tonight. I don't have any announcements, and I don't know if Mike does or not, but I'm going to go ahead and turn the device over to him. So, Mike, it's all yours.
Okay. I'm Mike Kelly from Project Healing Waters Omaha. So for tonight, not that camera, the other one. We're doing a pretty unique streamer pattern. It's called the Murdich Minnow. And you see this tied in a lot of different ways. If you look the fly up, and most of them use a real short chenille here for the front. I think it looks so much better, especially when it's wet and that sweeps back. It's a lot better of a minnow profile with the longer chenille. I'll go over all the materials. But it was originated by Bill Murdich, and it was for striped bass on the East Coast. So it's really a saltwater fly. The version that I'm doing tonight is as it was tied by Joe Cornwall. He did it at the 2010 Cincinnati Fly Fishing Show, and I watched a podcast where he presented it. And I'm using the materials that he used, which are just a little bit different than what most people use today. The fly's design allows it to suspend in the water column. So if you pause and you retrieve, it'll just kind of hang there a little bit. And the tail is a lot of flashaboo, and that'll just kind of, pulse in the water as well. So it gives a really good imitation of a wounded or dying bait fish. You can use it in, clear rivers, lakes, pretty much any species that eats minnows. Smallmouth bass, largemouth bass. They use it a lot back east for smallmouth. White bass, wiper, even, this is a size 2. You could probably go up a size, and even fish it for northern pike. And I'm sure big trout will even eat it. So for the materials, I'm going to share the recipe. But a lot of these things don't really, the hook I'm using again it's a nickel plated, it's actually like a streamer trailer hook. I got it from Netcraft, but there's a lot of similar hooks, just basically a standard hook shape, nickel plated, and that's a size 2. The tail can be white bucktail. The stuff that I have is super hair. He was, I believe the stuff Joe Cornwall called out was called unique hair, but it's a crinkly, stiff fiber, and I'll show you that when we get to that step. And that just basically helps support the upper part of the tail, which is flashaboo pearl with silver on top. If you were just to make the tail out of flashaboo, then it would just kind of probably definitely foul in the hook band, and it just kind of be flopping all over the place. And so that bucktail or that super hair just kind of supports that tail. the rear part of the body, and I'll go back to the fly for a second. The rear part of the body here is this wing and flash stuff, and it's pearl on the bottom, and then on top is silver. Alternatively, a lot of people will tie in the silver flashabou on top here, and then just fold the tips back to be the silver part. But this is supposed to kind of act like a wedge. There's a little bit tight on the lower far side and a little bit on the lower close side, and then the silver on top. And what that's supposed to do as this is pulled through the water is cause some turbulence in the water, which takes that tail and just causes it to move. Go back to the recipe. The body, like I was saying, a lot of people that tie these nowadays, there's several out on YouTube. They use a really short napped Estaz or equivalent. This is 1.25 inch chenille. It's a crystal and a trilobal fiber, which it's like pearlescent and it gives a lot of good color. And then the top of the fly is colored to make it look silver like the rest of it, with a pen that I'll show you as well. I use I think it's 5/16 eyes or 5/32. So I'll switch to the materials here. So here's that material I was talking about for the supporting the tail. And I bought this stuff, probably back in the, around 2010, around that time frame. So I don't know if it's still available as the actual brands and everything, but it's similar to a real stiff Antron. And that's to support the tail. And again, you could use bucktail if you don't have that. The back part, or I should say the top of the tail, is a pearl flashabou and silver flashabou. And then the little wedge in the back part of the body, is this material called wing and flash. And you just cut like a 1-inch piece, fold it over your thread and tie it in. This I bought from Hook and Hackle, which they don't sell fly tying materials anymore. But if you can find like a crystal chenille kind of stuff that has longer fibers, I just think the overall fly looks a lot better when it's like that. And then I'll use this. I think what Joe Cornwell used was liquid nails, flexible clear glue, and this is basically the same thing. It's Gorilla Glue, crystal clear, and it dries flexible. So you basically kind of make a little fish mask out of the chenille when you're all done with it. So it's a pretty interesting fly. So I'm going to grab one of these hooks, which again, these were from Netcraft. I don't know if they sell them as this anymore, but it's a 455 spinnerbait hook. But it's nickel plated, good length and shape. For the thread, I'm using monofilament thread. You could use a white thread. I just haven't used this in a really long time. And this is, again, what Joe Cornwall used. Put on my readers and we'll get started. Starting about 2 eye lengths back. And even with this mono, you can kind of do a jam knot, but you really have to hold that tag end tight because you want to make sure you get a real tight purchase on the hook and just lay down a really good thread base because you don't want this to loosen up and start spinning. And the way this hook bends, that's about the end of the shank right there. And this is a messy fly. With all the, if you don't like glitter, as you're cutting some of these materials, you get all kinds of little pieces all over the place. And so to tie in the tail support, I'm going to spiral forward. And then I have some from the fly I did earlier today I just put it in a test clip to hold everything together because that stuff's probably almost 12 inches long. And I knew I wouldn't need that much, so I saved what was left. So those tips are all pretty well aligned. So you want the tail to be about maybe 2 hook shanks behind. You want it to stick out quite a ways. So I'm going to tie it in, put it on my side so when I roll it around, it'll kind of stay to the top. And then take a few wraps before I clip off all that excess. And I'll put it back in that clip for another one later. Now, as tight as I can here, I want to go back to the end of the shank, and then that's kind of stiff. That's just going to support the upper part of the tail. So this is some pearl Flashaboo, and I'm just going to, about in the middle, I'm just going to wrap it around my thread, and then you can slide it to where you want it to be and just get it right on top like that. And then holding it on top, I can do spaced wraps here. Go all the way back to the back with that crystal flash, and then I'll go back forward. I'm sorry, the Flashaboo. Got that at the length of the tail. And then silver Flashaboo. And I don't have any of that set aside. I'm gonna have to grab about 6 or 8. Don't want to put too much in that tail. That's probably about 10. I'll take a couple out. And then again, just wrap it around my thread somewhere in the middle. And there we go. Put that on top as well. And then nice tight spaced wraps. Put that right on top of the pearl. Now that'll get kind of crazy. But if you moisten your fingers, you can kind of get it to stick back there a little ways. So that's the tail. Now, this wing and flash material, um, it's like a kind of like the Flashaboo, but it's really very fine. And it comes on a little wire tie, kind of a hank there. And I want two pieces that are about an inch. So this is about 2 inches worth. So I'm just going to cut it right here at the top. And it's hard to really kind of define how long it's going to be. Or I mean, I'm sorry, how big the bunch is. Um, it kind of has to be like trial and error. But you're folding it over in half, so you don't want it to be too much. I think I'll go with about that, and I'll just cut it right at the wire tie. A lot of these cuts, it's best to use the back of your scissors, not the tips, because this stuff is kind of dense and it can break. So I have the rest of these tips are a little bit uneven. I'm going to shorten those a little bit and get them pretty even. And now I have a little more than an inch. I'm going to cut that a little bit shorter. And then I'm going to come forward a little bit here. And it helps if you twist it a little bit. I'm going to fold it over the thread again. And then I want to place this on my side toward the bottom. Take a couple of wraps and then go up over that so it hangs out the back like that. I want to get that nice and secure. So that's toward the bottom on my side. And then take another piece. What I should have done, what I did on the first fly is actually use that full 2 inches, cut it in half, and carefully place the leftover on my pedestal. But I got a little ahead of myself and cut that to an inch. That way I know I have the same size bundle on both. So I'm gonna come back around, twist it a little bit so I don't lose control of it, and fold it. And then I'll place that on the far side. Kind of press it down there a little bit. And then nice tight wraps over that. And then that's going to cause the turbulence in the tail. Over the top, then is silver. And it's kind of hard to be frugal with this stuff. You really have to just grab a bunch and cut it. I'm going to take about that much. And cut it, and then I know I have good ends there. I'll turn it around and grab those ends, and then I'll cut this even where I have the same size piece, about an inch overall. give it a little twist and fold it in half. And then I'll place that right on top. Tie that down nice and secure. And now the hardest part is pretty much done. All right, let me move all this stuff out of the way, all the messy stuff. Now, the again, this I bought at Hook and Hackle, so we won't be able to get that anymore. But the package holds quite a bit. It's called Trilobal and Mirror Hackle, and it's 1.25 inches. This is the white or pearl. Instead of cutting off a piece and using it, I just keep this bundle. It actually came in 2 bundles, like clumps. So I'm just going to try to isolate the core there a little bit.
Mike, that almost looks like eyelash yarn.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things out there now for crystal buggers and different streamer flies, SDAS. There's a lot of different things that you can use, but it's really just a chenille, fairly flat, just made from like pearl and then some other trilobal like Antron. And I'm going to wrap this forward to get it out of the way and just do some touching turns toward the eye. And then I'm just going to make a hitch. 2 half hitches is a hitch, right? And so I've wrapped that around the other side. So I'm going to come on this bulky side there where I tied those, the back end part down, and just cover that over. And then toward the back of the fly, just kind of keep stroking this back and it'll stay fairly behaved. But you want to put a little bit of space, almost like you're palmering a hackle, in the back half of the fly. And then as you get toward the front, you want to really stack up those wraps to make it a little more dense at the front. So right about here, I'm going to start really going with touching wraps here with the material. You could try to use a rotary function on this, but since you have to stroke these back, it just really doesn't. I don't see how that would work very well. So I'm gonna tie this down with some really tight wraps, and I'll cut that core. And stroke all those back and just make kind of a small head there with the mono. I'll give it a couple of whip finishes here. With this mono, you can go quite a few wraps and not worry about it binding up. It looks like a pretty good head, and I'm pulling it real tight. And then cut it. Now, I'm just going to kind of take my bodkin and look for any that got wrapped under, but it looks pretty full. Now, you can see on this one, the top of it looks silver. Oh, there's this marker called Prismacolor, and the color is cool gray, and it's got a fine and a broad tip on it. And if you take that marker and just color the top, it starts to take those pearl fibers and really makes it look silver. And then you kind of mark up the head a little bit. Just do that top half like that. This pen is like several years old, 15 years old at least, but I keep it with the broad end down, so that's where all the blood runs to. Now, I'll do it on the materials camera. Just kind of show you what I'm doing. So I just have a little notepad, sticky note. Where's my, there we go. I'm going to take this glue and put maybe a little, about the size of a pea, maybe a little bit bigger. And then I'll take a toothpick and I'll move that over here and switch back. Now you take that glue, put a pretty good amount on there and just rub it into those, kind of roll it around and get it inside those fibers and just kind of spread it a little bit like that. Basically, you're using that flexible cement like that to make kind of a fish skull to the head area. That's pretty good. Now I'm going to take a little bit more glue and put it where the eye is going to go on both sides. And where my eyes go. Whoops, sorry about that. There they are. I found them. Sitting right on my pedestal. So I have a couple prism eyes. These are kind of little 3D, kind of a prism eyes. Stick one on that side. One thing about that sticky note pad with the glue on it is to get that out of the way, because you start moving materials around, and I set my hand in that glue so many times. And Having a little trouble getting it on my bodkin, but there we go. And that over there, if you get a little bit of the glue on your fingers and get it on the front, it dries clear, so it's not really going to show. Just kind of press that into place, and that'll really hold those eyes good. Take just a little bit more and make sure it's on the head in case that monofilament wants to start to unravel. And there's a Murdich Minnow.
Do you think you could just use GSP?
Great fly tonight, Mike. Nice tie. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, could you use GSP maybe as an alternative for a thread? Since I don't have mono.
Yeah, I would probably use white. You
Mhm.
could use anything, I suppose, but I think the white would, wouldn't show up very well in the front there.
Mhm.
But yeah, when that thing gets wet like that, it's a perfect minnow profile. And then that glue that I worked into there helps hold the eyes, but it helps to hold that shape. And that should be a dynamite smallmouth fly and white bass and whatever. Any questions? We only used up 34 minutes.
Yeah, Mike.
Go ahead.
Do you seal the eyes at all? Like do you
I
put-
don't. You could, I suppose you could go over it with some UV resin or whatever, but this flexible cement seems to make them stick on a lot better than say a super glue. UV resin, I've had a lot of problem on streamer type flies like this. I'll work the UV resin in there and hit it with the light. And the problem with UV resin is if the light can't hit it, it's not going to harden. So you might have a bunch of UV resin on the inside where the light couldn't reach it. So at least on this kind of a fly, I've kind of started to avoid using the UV. I have had a few of them kind of fall apart a little bit, but I squeezed it a little bit there, and that's what I did on the other one earlier.
Looks good.
Dale, how is that for what you remember seeing?
That's just spot on. I mean, it's the Murdich Minnow.
Yep. Yep. I thought that fly looked so cool. I had to buy all the materials. So it was shortly after I saw that podcast, I went out and bought all that stuff and tied a few of
I
them.
still have all of mine too. I got to get tying up some of them.
Yeah. The podcast was it was Fly Fish Ohio.
Mhm.
Let me Fly Fish Ohio had a weekly podcast, and he probably did about once a month, I think. But there's a lot of really unique flies, but a lot of them are pretty well suited to smallmouth crappie, big gills, stuff like that, because Ohio. But a lot of these can be used for trout as well, like I said. Um,